Yo, what up? How you guys doing out there today? This is your boy Roto Beast. I'm here with my boy Jeremy, aka DFS Dudes, and we're here to present you our NFL Thanksgiving Day slate breakdown. If you're new to this channel, please make sure and click the subscribe button below. This way you can watch all of our NFL, NBA, and MLB videos. And if you haven't came and checked out our website here at dfscheatsheet.com, you're absolutely missing out. We have all the tools to help you compete with the pros day in and day out, including a complete optimizer, tons of content, everything that you need. Daily Fanduel and Draftkings cash lineups. Hey, truly a one-stop shop for all your DFS needs. So before we do get into this slate, just want to tell everybody happy Thanksgiving to you guys out there. Definitely going to break down the 3 games for you in depth and get you some picks. So tomorrow, where you're stuffing your face with some very good food and hanging out with your family, you can actually make some money as well, watching some football games. So yeah, real quick, if you don't mind, take that quick second, click the like button for me down below. Helps me out. Really, really appreciate that from you guys. And yeah, man, I'm ready to get into this slate. So how you doing out there, Jeremy?
I'm good, man. Let's hop into it.
Yeah, definitely. So let me pull this NFL slate up really fast. So we got a couple really good games. A couple games I definitely think are going to be solid. We'll just get started. First game we'll start with is going to be the Chicago Bears, the other early game. So we'll just start with the early games and work our way down. So first thing first is going to be the surprising Chicago Bears going into Detroit to face the Lions. This game has a 43.5 over and under, and Vegas has Chicago favored by 2.5 in this game. So as always, if you don't mind, get us started with the visitor side of things, bro.
I got the weakest side for all 3 games. Trubisky's doubtful, so Chase Daniel's probably going to start. Chase Daniel hasn't started a game in the NFL since 2010. He averages about 6.2 yards per attempt and 65.4% completion percentage for his career. I'm not really excited to load up Chase Daniel. For me, this is a spot for Jordan Howard to showcase himself. I really think that that's where it's going to go. We know how bad Detroit has been against the run this year. I believe they're 32nd in DVOA against the run. They're also 30th or worst in DVOA across the board to all offensive positions. So for me, I think Jordan Howard is probably the best play, and he may turn out to be one of the best plays on the slate. I think there's 2 really solid running backs. Obviously, you'll cover the Lions with Garrett Blount, but this game I think offers us really solid running backs. The Detroit side has a bunch of stuff missing as well. So a game that looked like it might be a blowout when this slate, we start looking at this slate on Sunday, now all of a sudden looks like it could be a football game and be a really entertaining football game. You're just going to have to really dive to find value. And there is going to be value in this game, especially with Jordan Howard and his price at 6,200. So I like him. I think you can also look at Allen Robinson II. He's had big games over his last 2 games. He had a really big game against Detroit the last time they played. I actually like this game now. I really hated this game, but now today with all of the news that's broken, I'm sure you'll get into the Detroit side of the news that's broken on this with the guys who are out there. But Trubisky being doubtful, it helps this game a lot. So
what happened to Trubisky? I didn't even know that he was doubtful.
Okay, so if you want, I'll cover the news in this game. There's a bunch of it if you want.
I know the Detroit thing, but I just didn't see the Mitch Trubisky news. That's why I was just curious what happened.
Trubisky's doubtful, and what they're making a roster move, and they're elevating Tyler Bray from the practice squad, which is a pretty good indication that Trubisky's not playing. He injured his shoulder in that Sunday night game. Kind of came down hard on his shoulder, so he didn't practice Monday, didn't practice yesterday, is not practicing today. When they elevate a guy from the practice squad, pretty good indication that Chase Daniel's going to start.
Yeah, no, so okay. Cool. I just didn't know what had happened. Yeah, so definitely now that I know that Trubisky has a chance to be out, I'm gonna honestly say I think Detroit has a really good chance to win this game now. We've seen, year after year, Matthew Stafford is a really good quarterback. We know that. The guy could put up some points. I understand this year they're not having the best year and all that good stuff, but I like Matthew Stafford. And the guy is 6,800. They're starting to disrespect the guy a little bit. This guy has just as much upside as anybody on any single slate. So I like Matthew Stafford in this spot. I know Chicago is a tough defense. I understand that completely. But Detroit, they just, like you were talking about, there's a lot of injury news in Detroit. They lost their starting running back, and Johnson. He's going to be out tomorrow. Is he already ruled out, or is he just looking doubtful right now?
Kerryon Johnson is out, and
Yeah,
Marvin Jones is out for
right.
Detroit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think personally they're going to have to throw the ball out. I mean, they lost their starting running back. Garrett Blunt isn't a guy at this point in his career where you can give it to him 20 times a game. I feel like that's not really what they're going to do. And then they got their other running back, Theo Riddick, and he's more of a pass catching running back. So I definitely think that Stafford's going to have to throw a lot in this game. I like Matthew Stafford a lot. I think he's in a solid spot, even though it is a tough defense. I definitely think you could look at him. I think he's going to go under own, and he's cheap. 6,800 is dirt cheap. On the running back side of things, you got two guys. You got Theo Riddick. I think honestly they're pretty much just going to split evenly. All the runs are pretty much going to go to LeGarrette Blunt. All the goal line carries will go to LeGarrette Blunt, but all the second and third downs where they are even considering throwing, I think that Theo Riddick will be out there. So I mean, these guys, they're GPP plays just because there's no clear cut who's going to be the lead back, who's going to do what. And but I definitely think you could look at Riddick and LeGarrette Blunt in this spot. And then you mentioned it. Marvin Jones is out. So you got to go right back to the well with Kenny Galladay. I've played him the past 2 weeks in a row, and he hasn't disappointed us. And, I'm going to go right back to the well. I think Kenny Galladay's in a solid spot. Him and Stafford are really starting to build a rapport. So Galladay's a really, really good play. And I mean, that's really where I'm at on the Detroit side of things. I'm not going to look at their defense. I guess you could possibly look at the Detroit's defense just because it's going to be a backup quarterback. So they could have some upside. I know earlier in the year you were talking about the Detroit defense. But that's really where I'm at. And if you have anything to add, if there's any sleeper wide receivers for Detroit, definitely feel free to jump in and kind of touch on that. But I'm not really feeling none of the Detroit receivers outside of Galladay.
So I'll give you 2 spots that you should definitely load up in tournament plays for sure. Bruce Ellington, watch injury news on him. He did get 9 targets and 6 receptions last week against Carolina for 52 yards, 8 fantasy points. He's currently questionable with a back injury. So if he doesn't play and Marvin Jones Jr. is already ruled out, you're looking at guys like TJ Jones, you're looking at guys like Brandon Powell. But the guy that is a true proven pass catcher in the NFL, and granted, he's not a big name, but Luke Wilson at tight end, I think he is in play tomorrow at 4,200, with Trey Burton being the most expensive tight end at 6,400. And then you've got Jordan Reed. I don't feel like tight end is a spot to play up tomorrow. I'll get into another guy when we get later on a different game that I think is another tight end spot you can pay down for. But I think Luke Wilson at 4,200 with these pass catchers out for Detroit, they don't have a running game. Kerryon Johnson is going to be out. He's not playing. So they don't have a running game now. Like you said, they've got a pass catcher who's Theo Riddick, and they've got LeGarrette Blunt, who is a 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, and a goal line running back. He's not a 20-carry running back at this point in his career. So they're going to throw the football. I actually did on my quarterback video before all this news broke. I had Matthew Stafford as my favorite sleeper pick of the week just because I thought he's the guy that nobody would go get. I mean, I'd much rather have Trubisky for a few thousand more than Stafford in this game, right? But now he's out. So right. I think all the news that's broke on this game has now made this slate a lot tougher because there's so much more exposure you have to get across the board in a smaller slate. You could have pretty much gone at it, not had to go out of your way to fade this game. But now it's going to be a football game. It just is just the way it's going to go.
Yeah, and then just really quick, somebody talked about it in the chat. You said that it's looking like Chase Daniels is going to start for Chicago, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so Chase Daniels is going to start. Duke TV, I actually do like A. Miller as well at wide receiver. I think he's a solid play. I'm just a little bit scared with these Chicago wide receivers just because we don't know, how, if Chase Daniels is going to be able to come in here, quickly pick up the offense, etc. But definitely, I mean, if he, showed us in the past he's a serviceable quarterback, and I definitely think he can make a couple throws. It's just kind of like, we don't have a sample size, kind of what he's going to do. So it just kind of makes me a little bit nervous.
We do have a sample size. It's just old. I mean, his sample size, Chase Daniel's sample size is old. The last time that he started was a very long time ago. Right.
So, I mean, recently,
we don't have any. we don't have anything recent. The one thing I will tell you about wide receivers on Chicago side is if you look at Allen Robinson, he's had a really big last 2 weeks. He's had 2 touchdowns. He had a monster game against Detroit the last time they played. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. And then from a DVOA standpoint, Detroit, they're 32nd against wide receiver number 3s, and Taylor Gabriel at 5,100 is really cheap.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm ready to move on to the next game. If you're ready to move on, we got our Cowboys. We got our Cowboys going against Washington. It is in Dallas. So you got Redskins going into Dallas to face the Cowboys. This game has a 40.5 over and under, which is the lowest on the slate, and Dallas is favored by 7. And the one thing I want to note, we were talking about backup quarterbacks in the last game. Alex Smith, I'm sure most of you guys seen his gruesome injury the other day, so he's out. So you got what is his name? Colt McCoy coming in, and he's going to be the starting quarterback for Washington. Really quick, before you jump into the Washington side of things, I just want to note something. I definitely think I would rather go Colt McCoy than Chase Daniels if I was going to punt one of those quarterbacks coming in. I know Colt McCoy, he's a gamer. And he's played very well in the past when he's got the opportunity. So go ahead and get us started with the Washington side of things.
All right, man. So 2 guys that I like right away. We'll look at Colt McCoy. Washington 6-4, and their fate is in Colt McCoy's hands. That's for sure. Look, Colt McCoy he has played quarterback in this league before. He does have a win against Dallas in prime time. That was on Monday Night Football, but the problem is it was back in 2014, right? That's the last time he started. The thing with the Redskins, they have the second lowest implied total on the board at 16.5, and Dallas is favored by 7.5 points. So where do you really want to go to Colt McCoy here? Now look at the pricing with all the injury news. Matthew Stafford is such a better play. Colt McCoy almost a full fade here.
I agree.
Adrian Peterson you can look at also, but here's the thing: 2 touchdowns last week against Houston. Anytime you have a backup quarterback in, you want to try and use your running back, tight end, short passing game, pound the ball between the tackles, and make it safe for that to take big chances, put him in a bad spot. I think Dallas eats here. Their defense is way underrated. My 2 favorite defense on this slate are New Orleans and Dallas. I think Dallas has a really good opportunity to put themselves in the driver's seat, control their own destiny moving forward. So if you want to take a look at an injury situation, you can pay attention to Doxton, see what happens with that. You can also take a look at a deep tournament dive if you want to take a dart on somebody, and you can play Bibbs in this game, maybe in your flex spot. Other than that, the Washington side of things, I'm not really looking at. You can also look at Jordan Reed, but like I noted before, I think tight end on this particular slate, there's so many weapons at wide receiver. There's so many weapons at quarterback and running back. You're going to have to get these guys in your lineups. I think tight end is that spot that you pay down for this week and be a little bit different. So I don't think Jordan Reed's really on my radar either. Dallas' secondary is a hell of a lot better than they were before. And you got our boy Vander Esch, who kind of mobs in that hook to curl area where Jordan Reed likes to hang out. So for me, if I'm going to play anybody, you can, for exposure purposes and large field GPPs, you can get some exposure to McCoy and you get some exposure to Adrian Peterson. And that's really it, man.
Yeah, on the Dallas side of things, can I just say Ezekiel Elliott, and Ezekiel Elliott? They honestly, earlier in the year, they weren't giving him the touches that he should have got. The past couple games, the touches have come up. He's getting 5 or 6 more touches. Past couple games, really feeding him the ball, and he's really producing. He's the workload that they're giving him, he's handling. I definitely think they're going to go right back to the well. They're going to ride this dude. Their success really depends on the ball being in Ezekiel Elliott's hands. They're not a throwing team so much. So like I said, I'll start with Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's going to be between Ezekiel Elliott, Kamara, and probably Ingram. I think those are probably going to be the 3 highest owned running backs on the slate. I definitely think, especially if you're trying to play a little bit of cash games, I definitely think you got to have Elliott in there. So, he's a focal point of everything on the offense, pretty much of this team. So that's why I started with him. I love Elliott in this spot. Then you go to Dak. Dak isn't a guy that we're like, oh, we want to play Dak Prescott. But one thing I will note about Dak Prescott is he's actually running the ball a lot more. I'm surprised. And he's getting you those extra 3, 4, sometimes 5 extra points, that's helping that floor. Plus, he's throwing the ball a little bit now. The play action since Ezekiel has been playing very well past couple of games. The play action is really starting to kind of work a little bit more. Plus, he has a big time wide receiver now in Amari Cooper. I understand Amari Cooper hasn't done nothing special since coming to Dallas, but you guys got to understand is the guy's still kind of getting used to the offense, getting used to what Dak likes. So I like Dak. I like Elliott. And then you go look at Cooper, 6,500 for a guy who's the wide receiver #1 on this team, and he is getting a ton of targets. I definitely think he's just too cheap, and I really like Cooper in this spot. And then you can look at Old Faithful. You can go with Cole Beasley. He really likes Cole Beasley. He's the possession guy. He gets, the move the chains and all that good stuff. And Cole Beasley's scoring touchdowns this year as well. He dropped a wide open touchdown last week. But the guy, he's getting some touchdowns. And then the last guy I just quickly wanted to throw in there is this guy, Michael Gallup. This guy, he's strictly a GPP. I definitely would rather pay $400 more for Beasley if I was looking at cash games. But this guy Gallup, he's the guy that, we're expecting to be Amari Cooper, but Dak is really liking this guy Gallup, and he's throwing deep to this guy. He's the guy that Dak has really been taking shots with. He's a big wide receiver. So I definitely think he's worth mentioning. So for me on the Cowboys side of things, I'm just going to keep it simple. You go with Dak, you go with Elliott, and then you can look at their couple wide receivers. They're definitely all underpriced in my opinion. And then you could throw the defense in there. You talked about it. The defense is it's very people don't think the defense is as good as it is, but the numbers are proving how elite the Cowboys defense is this season. And you got to remember, I understand we're saying Colt McCoy is a decent quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But he still is a backup quarterback that's going to have, play his first game with his new team. He has big shoes to fill. So I definitely think the pressure could get to Colt McCoy, and the Cowboys could have a good game on the defensive side of things as well, especially at home. So I like them as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to the last game. It's going to be a fun game. So we got Atlanta Falcons going into New Orleans to face the Saints. This game has the highest implied total by a lot, by 16 points more than the other two games. So it's 59.5, almost 60 points to be scored over and under wise. Vegas has New Orleans favored by 13. So New Orleans is a big time favorite at home. So get us started with the Atlanta side of things.
So here's the deal, right? Atlanta's season's on the line here. There's no other way of putting it. Their season's on the line. Currently, they are at 4-6. The Saints are at 9-1. They're looking at wild card spots where you've got teams at 5-5 and 6-4. So at 4-6, they've got to turn it around and they've got to almost win out to stay alive. This game in New Orleans, going to be loud. I like New Orleans defense. And here's the thing. They've got to throw the football. So you look at Julio Jones first, been very productive as of late. 30 targets, 20 catches, 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games, a pass reception touchdown in each of those last 3 games, 100-plus receiving yards in 6 of his last 7 games, and 20 Fanduel points in 3 of his last 3 games. So you look at the first meeting, he had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 96 receiving yards. We know Calvin Ridley had a monster game, 147 receiving yards in that one and 3 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley. Take a look at Matt Ryan. Like I say, they're in a do-or-die spot. Matt Ryan has played pretty well. He's got 6 300-yard passing games through 10 games this season. In the first meeting, 26 of 35 for 375 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. 3 of those were to Calvin Ridley. They will have to throw the football, period. And the thing is, Matt Ryan's got plenty of weapons. Julio, Ridley, Sanu, Austin Hooper playing really well. Coleman. This guy, Coleman, is just like Theo Riddick. He's just a better version of Theo Riddick. He's a pass-catching running back. This guy's always been the third down back there, even with the healthy Devontae Freeman. So they're going to throw the ball a lot in this game. It's going to be loud. I really think New Orleans is going to pin their ears back defensively and come after Matt Ryan. Can Matt Ryan throw the ball hot? Can he? Can he complete the ball at a high percentage in this game in a loud environment, prime time, your season's on the line? Can Matty Ice get it done? That's really the breakdown for me. I'm playing 4 guys, possibly 5 with Hooper. But again, I'll keep saying I'm not really into paying up at tight end this week. I think there's like 3 guys you can pay down for. We didn't mention one of them in the Dallas game. There's a tight end you could pay down there too. But for me, On the New Orleans side, there's a third tight end you could pay for in Hill and pay down for. So that's really it. 4 guys: Ridley, Jones, Matt Ryan, Tevin Coleman. But the thing with Tevin Coleman is 6,500. I would much rather probably play a Jordan Howard at 6,000. So, in the 6,000 range. So Coleman not really in play for me on this slate, but Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley definitely are. Calvin Ridley is just, you can build lineups this week, and let's wait and see what happens with the news with Traquan Smith. But you can really go Cooper, Smith, and Ridley and pay up at 2 running back spots and still get a Drew Brees and Matt Ryan. And you've got plenty of room to throw a LeGarrette Blount in a flex spot. You've got plenty of room to get a Dallas defense, even go all the way down to New Orleans, who I think is in a really good spot as well. So I like this slate. I'm really liking the way that the builds are starting to come together. These are the guys you play on the Atlanta side.
Yeah, and then on the New Orleans side of things, you look at the obvious dude. First thing first, Drew Brees. He's the MVP right now of the league, in my opinion. It's either him or Mahomes. They're really fighting for it. Drew Brees is just ridiculous. His completion percentage, everything. And we know that Drew Brees always plays better at home against a rival in Atlanta. Oh man, I think that honestly, as much as I wouldn't mind seeing Atlanta make it a really good game. I definitely think they could, but I don't think this is the best spot for them. Drew Brees, I think, can have a field day against this Atlanta defense. We've been targeting this Atlanta's defense all season with a lot worse offenses. Now we get a top 3 offense in the league. Oh, Drew Brees is in an amazing spot right here to have a really good game. Definitely got to start with Drew Brees. And then you go to the running backs. You got Kamara, you got Ingram. The crazy thing about them, and I was noticing, is they're split in time for the most part. And both of them have bought into the system, though. They're having a lot of fun. You seen the other day, they both scored touchdowns, and they were celebrating together. And it's going very well. Ingram is more the first down back and kind of more the goal line back. Kamara is the second, third down, the pass catcher. But Kamara also does get some goal line carries as well. I like both of those running backs. I definitely think both of those running backs are in a good play. The thing about it is, if I'm going to pay $8,900 for Kamara, I personally rather just go with Ezekiel Elliott. He doesn't have this timeshare situation like Kamara, but I like both of those running backs. And then you go to the wide receiver spots. You got Michael Thomas, top 3 wide receiver in the league. He had a decent game last week. He didn't have the monster game people wanted. So I definitely think people can kind of overlook him a little bit. But I like Michael Thomas a lot. Great play. And then you talked about the young guy in Traquan Smith. He's listed as questionable right now. I don't know. Haven't have to see if he practiced today or whatnot yet. I haven't seen that news yet. But if this guy plays 6,400, he was actually really good last week. I watched this game, and he's a really good compliment to Michael Thomas. And 6,400 is a very fair price tag for sure. I like Smith. And then, you mentioned it earlier. You can look at the Saints' defense. Their defense is actually, not bad. I was really surprised in what they did to the Eagles. So I like the Saints' defense. And then lastly, you can look at Benjamin Watson at tight end. He hasn't had, no crazy good games this season, but, he's getting his somewhat. I think that he, compared to some of the other tight ends on this slate, him and Hooper are probably the better tight ends. Obviously, you got the tight end for Chicago, who's really good as well, but he has a backup quarterback. So that's kind of what scared me a little bit. Same thing with Washington and Jordan Reed is they got backup quarterbacks. So Benjamin Watson, Josh Hill, you mentioned him. I think he's a cheap play that you could throw in there so you could pay up elsewhere. And that's really where I'm at, man. Honestly, all the Saints' offense is in play and their defense.
A couple of things. So I want to recap it so everybody knows who I'm talking about at tight end. Josh Hill's 4,300. You can even look at a deep sleeper play in Vernon Davis at 4,500. Rico Gathers steps in for the Cowboys. He's 4,000. And then, the other guy that we talked about was Luke Wilson at 4,200. So there's tight ends in play in spots. I just think tight end's not the spot to pay up for this week with all of the other weapons on the board. Another thing that I would just want to mention quickly about this particular game, the roles were reversed back in 2016, and in a similar spot, New Year's Day primetime game, this game went nuts. I won a tournament, actually, a Monday through Thursday tournament on Fanduel, and I had Coleman and Freeman both in my lineup. My point is, this is a rivalry game. It's a division game. Don't be afraid to build tournament lineups that have Kamara and Ingram in them on this 3-game slate. You can definitely do it. Both guys are in a good spot. You see what Ingram's done in the last 2 weeks, and then you see that Kamara's averaged 19.35 fantasy points in the 6 weeks since Mark Ingram has come back. It hasn't really affected his production at all as far as a fantasy standpoint goes.
Well, I mean, bro, you got to think about when your team is putting up 40 fantasy points, 40 actual scoring points every single game. I mean, there's a lot to go around for sure.
I believe they've scored 40 points or more in 5 of their last 6 games, and they've done it 7 times this season.
And I personally, they haven't said it, but I think they're going for that record, bro. The record of the most points a game. Like they're like 0.4 away or some shit. So it's like if you're that close, you go for a record like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's about all I got for this NFL Thanksgiving slate. If you got anything else, feel free to add. If not, I'm going to be back a little bit later today with my NBA core plays. I know Jeremy put up his in NBA GPP core plays for today over on the DFS Cheat Sheet YouTube channel. He also has a couple videos leading you into Sunday as well. So go make sure and check out that channel. Make sure to subscribe over there as well. We've been pumping out a lot of content. We're doing a lot of things with our optimizer. Things are really coming together for us on the website. Customers have been having really, really good success with the optimizers. So come check it out, man. Have some fun with us. Tomorrow's a great day to throw in 150 lineups, get some different combinations, and hey, man, take down a tournament on Thanksgiving. So thank you guys for watching this video. Jeremy, thank you for helping me out, breaking down this NFL slate. Good luck to you guys tomorrow. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, and peace out, guys.